The New York Islanders pick up 1 point in a disappointing two-game weekend. We'll break down what went wrong, plus discuss the season debuts of Oliver Wahlstrom and Julien Gauthier, and talk about this team's penalty problem. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And you can find us on SiriusXM. Just go to the SXM app and do a search for Locked On Islanders. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Busy show coming up after a busy weekend of hockey for the Islanders. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnIsles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I'm live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game, so make sure you join me for instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey game time or anytime. Well, it was a disappointing weekend for the New York Islanders, and to me, Friday night's game and Saturday night's game were disappointing really for different reasons. And I was less upset about Friday night's game, mainly because the Islanders did manage to escape with a point, tied the game up late, and did not play horribly. Although the things they did wrong were very concerning given the circumstances. And I'm going to break all of that down. But I think the big issue for me, I mean, there were some bright spots Friday against the Devils. Bo Horvat, his first 2 goals of the season and his first multiple goal game as a New York Islander. Both of those encouraging things to see. How about Brock Nelson? 2 goals also in Friday night's game. And that line of Nelson, Engvall, and Palmieri by far remains the Islanders' best line and most consistent line offensively out of, all 4 lines. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the first line because, clearly by the end of this game against the Devils, it was clear Simon Holmstrom was not the answer on the top line. They moved Anders Lee back to the top line in the second half of this game. Everydayers, I'm not thrilled with the idea of Lee and Horvat being on the same line. I think their styles are just a little bit too similar, but overall, good to see the top line being productive at least. And, 2 goals, as I mentioned, for Horvat. But one other thing I got to say, Ilya Sorokin was outstanding. And yeah, you could talk to me all you want about the fact that Sorokin gave up 5 goals. And he did. But you know what? If it wasn't for the outstanding play of Ilya Sorokin on Friday night, the Islanders would not have gotten a point, would not have come close to getting a point, and realistically just would have been out of this game quickly and early and just, weren't as good of a team as the Devils were in certain areas. So to me, it was imperative that the New York Islanders had the goaltending they got from Sorokin. And, he made 34 saves, but so many of them were quality saves that just, bailed the Islanders out when they made mistakes. And that was certainly a big concern. The other concern, obviously, when you break down this game was penalties. And, the Devils, as we know, are a fast skating, young, skilled team. Basically, right now, the Devils have all the things the Islanders need to do to get to that next level. The Islanders need to be faster, younger, and more skilled. And we talked about it, everydayers know, throughout the offseason and all the rumors and all the things that Lou Lamoriello talked about, that puck-moving defenseman, that sniper, whether it was Alex DeBrincat or somebody else, just that player who would add that dynamic finishing skill to the Islanders' attack that they really are lacking. And the problem is that because the Islanders don't have the speed that the Devils had, and because too often they got lazy and stopped moving their feet, they ended up taking some really foolish penalties. And, Casey Cizikas, Friday night, 2 minor penalties, 1 for slashing, 1 for cross-checking. Adam Pelech, 2 minor penalties, 1 for interference, 1 for delay of game. And, the delay of game penalty, I don't think was a result of not skating and then having to grab your opponent. But too many of the penalties, the Engvall hook, the Matt Martin cross-check, they were a result of the Islanders not spacing themselves out positionally well in the neutral zone and allowing the Devils to get that speed. And then the Islanders had to take guys down because they couldn't catch them. And, the Devils then turned around and really cashed in on the power play. 4 power play goals. The only goal that wasn't a power play goal, the overtime game winner by Jack Hughes. And if you think about it, what do the power play and a 3-on-3 overtime have in common? They are a situation where the team that is faster and more skilled is going to have an advantage. It is one thing to say, we're going to try to slow down Jack Hughes 5-on-5. And you can get the Pajot line out there and you can get, maybe your better defenseman, whether it's Ryan Polak or Adam Pelech or Alexander Romanov, or if he's healthy, Scott Mayfield. You want to get those defensive-minded guys out there on the ice. You play smart positionally, and then, you cash in. But if there's 5-on-4, or as it is in overtime, 3-on-3, it is a lot harder to slow a skilled, dangerous sniper like Jack Hughes down, because when you give him extra time and space, he's going to hurt you. And we talked about it. Everydayers will remember Friday, I said one of the keys to the game against the Devils was going to be staying out of the penalty box. The Islanders didn't do it. They couldn't kill off the penalties, and it cost them at least, 1 point in the standings. And look, you win that game, the Devils either get 1 point if it goes to overtime or no points. So not only did it cost the Islanders a point, but it gave the Devils an extra point or 2, and that is going to affect the Metropolitan Division standings. So those things really were problematic, and we were hoping at least that the Islanders would be able to improve that on Saturday when they played their first road game against Buffalo. We're going to talk about that game, what happened, what went wrong. Plus, we'll have our heroes and goats of the game. So we've got all that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Matthew Barzal scores a hat trick. The Islanders win the Stanley Cup, and if you want to win 100 times your money, play daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app. These are all possible scenarios for this season, but to have a chance at winning big, you need to play daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. It's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy contests. So pick studs like Matthew Barzal or Bo Horvat or Brock Nelson. All you need to do is pick more or less on stats for these stars or any player you choose. And you can choose stats like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. You heard me, Islander fans. 100 times payouts on Sleeper. So start paying attention and get your picks right so you can win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So Saturday's game was also disappointing. And I guess before we get to that, let's do the hero and GOAT of the game from Friday. The hero of the game, I'm going with Bo Horvat for his 2-goal effort. Overall, he was a +2 and ended up winning faceoffs as well, 9 out of 17. So I'm going to, and block 2 shots. So I'm going to go with Bo Horvat. And as for the GOAT of the game, to me, it's going to be Casey Cizikas and Adam Pelech, who each took 4 minutes in minor penalties. And we all know how the power play or the penalty kill. Well, you know what? Let's change it. Rather than the players who took the penalties, let's make it for the penalty kill as a unit, which just let the team down. Now, Saturday, this game got away from the Islanders realistically in the second period. And you would have thought the first period was scoreless, and the game was scoreless really for the first 16 and a half minutes of the second period. But that's when it kind of got away and the Islanders got sloppy. And, you know, this unfortunately is something that we've talked about on the show fairly consistently, and it just was a problem again. And Lane Lambert summed it up again. You know, the Islanders officially credited with 5 giveaways in the Buffalo game, but, you know, those giveaway takeaway stats are kind of tricky. Overall, their puck management was lacking. And here's what Lane Lambert had to say. Through the neutral zone, our puck management has to be better. That's 2 nights in a row now where we're trying. The intentions are good, but unintended consequences come along with that. And when you turn the puck over in the neutral zone, certainly against fast teams that transition quickly, then you find yourself back in your own zone and spending way too much time there. So we just have to manage the puck better. And, you know, then it's a 1-0 game late in the final minute of the period. And Adam Pelech, who has struggled a little bit over the last 2 games, especially, you know, he went for the big hit. And he goes to make a hit on Jeff Skinner. Skinner avoids the hit, makes him miss. You get an odd man rush the other way, and Matthias Samuelsson scores with 37 seconds left in the period, and voila. Instead of 1-0 going into the third period, it is 2-0. So again, you know, that is one of those situations where you just can't make a play like that late in the period when your team is on the road and still in the game, and yet you have, you know, you go for the big hit, you miss. Look, you can go for the big hit, but you got to time it right. And if you go for it, you darn well better end up with it. Anders Lee adds, our detail wasn't where it needed to be. You have to be extremely diligent with the puck, and you can't give them any freebies when it comes to turnovers. So we had too many of those tonight, and they had some sustained pressure. Now, this was the season debut for the Islanders' backup goalie, Semyon Varlamov, and Varley made 40 saves and had a .930 save percentage in this game. But again, you can't be outshot 43-25 and hope to win a lot of hockey games, even when your goalie is extremely, playing extremely well. And early in the third period, you get that third goal by Dylan Cousins, and that more or less ended it. And the Islanders did get the late goal, thankfully, with about a little less than a minute and a half left to at least avoid the shutout and get Noah Dobson his first goal of the game. But again, you just can't play the way this Islander team played. And you know what? Nelson, Engvall, and Palmieri and Nelson -1, Engvall -2 in this game. It just wasn't pretty. So, hero of the game, I'm going with Varley. 40 saves, kept his team in a game they really had no business being in. So, to me, Semyon Varlamov, who hadn't played in, almost 2 weeks, gets the call and is sharp. I was concerned about him after that shaky preseason, but the veteran proved me wrong, and I'm glad to see that he did very well in that regard. And then, my GOAT of the game, I'm going to go with, there are so many choices, unfortunately, but I'm going to go with Pelech, who, gave up that odd man rush late in the second period and just didn't get the job done. So it wasn't easy to watch these games because, especially Friday night, that game was there for the taking. And I'll have to say, the way they lost these two games is concerning because it is just like the two wins were more of the same of what we saw from this team last year. The two losses were as well. The two wins, they played disciplined hockey. They, played good team defense, got strong goaltending, didn't take too many unnecessary penalties, and they won. And then you come back to the last two games where they took too many penalties, stopped moving their feet, turned the puck over in the neutral zone, allowed too many quality scoring opportunities, couldn't kill the penalties that they took, and end up losing and being thoroughly outplayed. So right now, through 4 games, and it's still early, there's 78 games left, but what I'm seeing reminds me a lot of what I saw last year with this team, and I'm hoping at least that the Islanders could be a little better than they were a year ago. So far, it looks like a lot of the same, but there are, again, some things where you look at it and you say, okay, if they can clean this up, maybe there's room for improvement. Now, we have got more to get to on today's show. We're going to talk about the season debuts of 2 players on Saturday, Oliver Wahlstrom and Julien Gauthier. And for Gauthier, it was his Islanders debut. And, well, our Islanders birthday of the day, we're a day late with it, but a very, very popular Islander, a person who played, coached, and broadcasted for the New York Islanders. Let's see if you can guess who that is. So we've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. So the Islanders, 2 players making their season debuts on Saturday, and that was Oliver Wahlstrom and Julien Gauthier. And Wahlstrom got his chances there on the top line. So he was out there with Horvat and Barzal playing the right side. Gauthier, meanwhile, was inserted on the third line with Pajot and Lee. So Hudson Fasching, who I always liked but did look a little shaky so far early this season. I think he misses Zach Parise. He got very comfortable with the game Parise played and had trouble adjusting to Anders Lee being on his line. Let's see how he does and whether he gets the opportunity to come back into the lineup. And then Wahlstrom in for Simon Holmstrom. And look, I think we can all agree after the first 3 games that Simon Holmstrom is not the guy you want on the top line. He might be able to be an effective third line player, and I still think he may be better off down at Bridgeport, where he can get top 6 minutes and play a bigger role and get his confidence back and then be called up. Doesn't need to go through waivers. We know that. But to me, Gauthier gives you the same speed that you're going to get from Simon Holmstrom, probably even has a little more speed and gives you more of an offensive upside, which I think is helpful with Lee and Pajot. Meanwhile, to me, giving Wahlstrom a shot on the top line, I'd like to see what he might be able to add. Certainly, he has the most offensive potential out of the possible players who can slot into that first line who are presently on the roster. And look, Wahlstrom is just, they didn't let him play until Saturday night because of the fact that he's still getting back into hockey shape from that injury, was only on the ice for 12 minutes and 16 seconds of ice time. So to me, you got to give Wahlstrom time. And maybe he gets 4 or 5 games on that top line before we can figure out whether or not he is the guy who might be a good fit. And, I don't expect him to automatically click, but give him some time to learn how to play with Bo and Barzy, to get back into hockey shape. And if he shows enough flashes early on and does what he's supposed to do when he doesn't have the puck, boy, oh boy, I think he is the best candidate. And if it doesn't work out with Wahlstrom, to me, Gauthier would be the next logical guy who I would try on that top line. But again, let's see what Wahlstrom can do first before we then turn our attention to the possibility of Gauthier. And it'll be interesting to see on Tuesday when the Avalanche are in town, whether Hudson Fasching is back in the lineup or whether or not we get Scott Mayfield back. Samuel Bolduc had his struggles also, by the way, on Saturday. And also whether or not the Islanders can clean up those penalties and those, you're not skating, you're not moving your skates and just trying to catch a faster team. Again, Cizikas is taking a penalty on Saturday that you don't want to see. Ryan Pollock taking a penalty and Pierre Engvall taking a penalty. You got to clean that up. You're not going to win a lot of hockey games in the penalty box trying to kill all those penalties off. By the way, the face-off circle, the Sabres dominated. How about this? Brock Nelson 0 for 7 in the face-off circle, and no Islanders player had a winning record in the face-off dot in the game against Buffalo. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And this is a guy whose number has been retired by the Islanders, who served as a player, an assistant coach, a head coach, a minor league coach, and now a broadcaster. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Butch Goring, and Sunday was his 74th birthday. The native of St. Boniface, Manitoba, drafted by the LA Kings in the 5th round back in 1969, made his NHL debut in 69-70 for the Kings, and had some 30-goal seasons in LA, 4 of them in a row in the mid to late 70s. Got traded to the Islanders in 1980, just at the trade deadline, and was the last piece of the puzzle that helped the New York Islanders win 4 straight Stanley Cups. Was the Conn Smythe winner for the New York Islanders in 1980-81, and really just did a great job. Ended up later finishing his career with the Boston Bruins, and then coached the Bruins as a head coach, coached in the Islanders farm system, coached the Islanders as a head coach in 99, 2000, and 2000, 2001. And now, of course, is the color commentator on Islanders TV broadcasts, and one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. We're going to look at one of his bigger games as an Islander, March 30th, 1980, at Le Colisée in Quebec City. Islanders and the old Quebec Nordiques. Chico Resch, the goalie for the Islanders. Goran Hogosta, the goalie for the Nords. And in this one, it's the Butch Goring show. Butchie gets a hat trick and an assist, a 4-point night. One of the goals is a shorty. He scores 3 goals on 6 shots as the Islanders crush the Nordiques 9-6 in this game. We mentioned the 4 points for Goring. Dennis Potvin and Brian Trottier each with a goal and 2 assists, and 3 assists for Anders Kaller as the Islanders beat Quebec. But Butch Goring kind of did everything for the Islanders except sell programs. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day, and we wish Butch, who's one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet, great to talk hockey with anytime if you get the chance, do it. We wish him many, many happy and healthy birthdays. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we will preview the Islanders game against the Colorado Avalanche back at the UBS Arena Tuesday night. Plus, hopefully, we'll have some injury updates on Scott Mayfield and maybe an idea as to who's going to be in the lineup tomorrow night when the Islanders face the Avalanche. So we'll have that and a lot more on the show. Until then, stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. And of course, let's go Islanders.